This is AJ Wachtel. Welcome to my podcast, Wachtelligence, where I discuss with my guests the past, present, and future of the local and national music scene with a focus on Boston and New England. Today's episode, Christine Ohlman, the Beehive Queen, is about the larger-than-life career of an extremely talented songwriter, guitarist, recording artist, musicologist, record collector, and vivacious vocalist who is known for her huge platinum beehive and her incredible voice. Christine has also been the longtime lead singer of Saturday Night Live's band on TV every weekend at Rockefeller Center in New York City. And she has also had her own killer group based out of Connecticut, Christine Ohlman and Rebel Montez. Welcome to Wachtelligence, Christine.
Thank you, AJ. They can't see, but you're making the Beehive Queen blush here.
That's great. Hey, listen, you were born in the Bronx on November 25th. Did you make it home or spend your first Thanksgiving in the hospital?
Oh, wow. Nobody's ever asked me that. There was a big storm, almost like a late season hurricane. My mother and my grandmother used to always tell me in New York City that night. But I don't really know what date Thanksgiving was that year, but often I will say my birthday does fall on Thanksgiving, so it may have been. But there was a big storm when I was born.
You've called, Connecticut home for so many years, for many moons. When did your family move there?
I was very young when we moved to Connecticut, but my grandparents were in the Bronx, so we were down the Bronx every other weekend, and then for weeks at a time in the summer, my grandmother would have us each come for like 2 or 3 weeks just to be alone with her, and we would go everywhere with her. So, and a lot of my radio reference was to the New York stations at the time.
Right.
So it's a big Bronx connection.
Who did you listen to?
Murray the K, Cousin Brucey. I mean, my mother passed away just before I got the gig on SNL, and I always wondered, how proud she would have been for me to be back in New York and back in New York at that level.
Absolutely. After all these years, Christina, I'm going to put you on the spot first thing off the bat. Are you a Yankees fan or a Red Sox fan?
Well, I'm born in the Bronx. Of course, I'm a Yankees fan. My grandfather, when the Mets came on the scene, my grandfather used to say, the Mets aren't even a real team. So we had to watch. Oh, it's Yankees 100%, baby.
Well, I'm a Red Sox fan, and I was brought up in New Jersey, in Springfield, New Jersey, and I used to love those Munson Fist days,
Yeah.
And it's just not like that anymore. But at any rate, you were, a 16-year-old, and you were a high school student in New Haven, Connecticut, a great town, when you sang in a blues rock band called The Wrong Black Bag.
Yeah.
Why the H? It was spelled WRONGH. So why the H?
My brother, who was the leader of the band, thought it was a cool idea. I don't know, but we just thought it was a cool idea. We had a lot of fun in that band. We had records out, the whole thing, the whole 9 yards. Yeah.
Well, your younger brother, Vic Steffens, he was the group's drummer, and he owns a recording studio in West Haven now, right?
Yeah, Horizon Music Group, and he runs HMG Records. I made my last record over there. I'm making my new one over there. He's a great multi-instrumentalist and producer.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I agree too, and it's keeping it in the family. What could be better than that,
That's right.
Well, and the next band that you and Vic formed, it was called Fancy, and I just love your first release album, Fancy Meeting You Here. What a great name! And you also had a 45, All My Best.
Yep.
Tell me about that band.
Well, yeah, that band just kind of evolved out of The Wrong Black Bag. It was some of the same people, but some new people. Paula Sola on bass. Paula Sola later joined me in the SNL band.
Right.
And there was also a record with The Wrong Black Bag. It was called Wake Me, Shake Me. Mm-hmm. And we were on the charts with that band. The producer was a guy named Bob Shad. He had famously produced Big Brother and the Holding Company early on, and then Ultimate Spinach with Jeff Skunk Baxter, and the Amboy Dukes with Ted Nugent. So we were sort of the baby band on mainstream records, and then that evolved. Wrong Black Bag evolved into Fancy.
Well, Skunk Baxter also went to Boston University. He
Yes,
was
he did.
yeah, and I'm not sure, but I think that him and I also, with James Montgomery and Barry Tagian from Barry and the Remains, I think we're all veterans of the same dorm, Miles Standish Hall.
Oh, isn't that great? Oh my God.
I bring that up to Montgomery and Tagian from time to time. We always smirk and shake our heads 50 years later, All right.
Yeah.
At any rate, Fancy disbands, and you joined the Scratch Band. And you were known for your wild live performances. How wild?
Well, they were pretty wild because we knew so many songs, and we knew over 300 songs, and we knew we played 25 nights a month because back then you could.
Yeah.
And there was enough places around to support that kind of a calendar. And of course, coming into the Scratch Band, when we put a notice in the paper, our guitar player moved on, was a cat named G.E. Smith. He moved to Connecticut from the Poconos in Pennsylvania, and he showed up with his hair down to his ass and a guitar, and we took him. And once we took him, our repertoire expanded even more because we played everything from the girl groups to serious Delta blues. And then we began writing our own songs.
Well, G.E., for all you listeners out there, he also later went to Hall & Oates, and you might even know him from today because he reunited with Christine in the Saturday Night Live band today. Right. And that's pretty cool, too.
That's right. Yes, he's the reason I'm in the Saturday Night Live band as things transpired.
Oh, we'll get to that in a second or two. But, after Scratch, you formed Christine Ohlman and the Soul Rockers. And, that's a great name. But to me, your music style has always been, and it's been described, I've read it as rootsy Americana with old school soul.
Yeah.
Translate that into English. What does that mean?
Well, Dave Marsh, who's one of the founders of Rolling Stone magazine and now is on Sirius XM, calls it contemporary rock R&B.
Right.
And he says that, it's me, Bruce Springsteen, and Southside Johnny. We're sort of the best examples of that. And of course, anything that Dave Marsh says, I'll take as gospel. He's a great friend too. And so what that really means is that, I listen to everything and I've absorbed everything in my life. It's, Rebel Montez is a guitar-driven band, but really there's echoes of gospel. There's certainly echoes of the blues in there by all means.
Oh, I agree. I've seen you people live and on stage. Like I said, I'm a friend and a fan of yours, Christine. Can you play a little bit of music for us right now?
I will. I'm going to play something. Our latest album has a song in it called The Deep End, which actually features Al Anderson as the special guest on the record. There was a lot of special guests on that record. And I know you'll talk. I'm sure you'll ask me about that.
Absolutely.
I will jump right into the deep end, the river of love, love, love. I gotta be satisfied. I wanna be baptized down in the deep end, down in the deep end. Down in the deep end, down in the deep end, down in the deep end, down in the deep end. Yeah. I want to be baptized. Baby, let's go down to the deep end, way down in the river of love.
Woo! Thank you. Bravo. Thanks for the private concert.
Thank you for asking, AJ.
What a great way to wake up on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, baby.
That's great. Listen, now I have to ask you the obvious question, but I couldn't ask you it first. How'd you get your Beehive hairdo?
Oh, well, I used to wear a lot of vintage clothing on stage. I still do, but I used to wear serious vintage, like cocktail dresses and things. And I was a big fan of the girl groups, especially the Ronettes. And so I began teasing my hair up at one point, and everybody kind of went crazy for it. And then someone started calling me the Beehive Queen. I didn't, but someone online did, and it caught on. And at one point, the B-52s actually asked me to join. When Cindy left, I would have had to leave SNL, and I was always glad that I graciously declined because she was back in about 6 months. So the gig wouldn't have lasted long, and I would have had to leave SNL, but they did ask me.
Well,
Yeah.
now you joined SNL as their lead singer in 1991, and you reunited with G.E. Smith. And how did that happen? You said that he got you into the band. How did that happen?
I'll just make a short story because it's a great story. I used to make, mixtapes and mix CDs out of my soul music collection. I have a huge vinyl collection, and I would send them around. And GE was one of the people I always sent them to. One day my phone rang, and he asked me if I was free on a certain date to do a gig, and luckily I was 29 years later. And all the money I made. And I said, yes, I was. And he said, well, we're going to make some charts for you out of the tapes you've been sending me. And then it transpired that, the band was going to be the Saturday Night Live band, but I still didn't know what the gig was. We were going to play at the Stephen Talk House, and then they brought me to New York, put me up at the Mayfair Hotel. We had a couple days of rehearsal at SIR, and then they told me that the actual gig was for Lorne Michaels' wedding reception at his estate in the Hamptons. So sure enough, we go and everybody is there. Jack Nicholson is walking around, John Goodman, everybody's walking around the grounds. We do our show. Everything's great. And the next week was the beginning of the season, which is always at the end of September in SNL, Studio 8H. And here they are. The band is up on the stage getting ready to play. Lorne Michaels walks across the studio and says to GE, "Where's the girl?" And GE says, "What do you mean? Well, where's the girl that was with you at the wedding?" GE says, "Well, I don't know. She was with us at the," and Lorne said, "No, she was great. Call her up and tell her to come next week." So that's how I got the gig.
That's very cool. Can you tell me some of your magic moments, some of the greatest moments, not 100 stories, but there's got to be a couple that just still stand out.
Number one, and I always mention this in interviews, Paul McCartney was on for the first time, and now he's been on several times, and he's just sometimes comes and hangs around the studio. But first time, he played a little mini concert during what we call dinner, which is, we call it lunch, actually. It's at 5:30. He played a little mini concert. Of course, nobody ate that day. And he played extra songs, not songs he was going to play on the show, and one of them was Hey Jude. And the late Chris Farley was standing next to me as we listened, and he said, "Christine, will you dance with me?" And we waltzed around the studio while Paul McCartney played Hey Jude. That's number one, AJ. I'll never forget that. But I was there for Sinead O'Connor ripping up the picture of the Pope. I was there for Ashley Simpson running off stage. I was there the first Nirvana show, the first time they were on, and they trashed their instruments at the end of the song. And Luciano Pavarotti with Vanessa Williams one Christmas with a string section, thing Adeste Fideles. I mean, there really are some wonderful memories, but that Chris Farley really, has never left my heart.
Please tell me about some of the recent Saturday Night Live shows.
Well, we came back with a very limited audience, 25% audience. It's all made up of first responders. And the band is separated into two floors. There's some of them are down in the Jimmy Fallon studio, and others of them are on the 8th floor where we normally are. And everybody's in a plexiglass cubes. And there's doubles testing. You have to be tested twice on 2 different days. So they've really been very, very, very careful because I might have been one of the first live shows to open up with an audience, but extreme caution has been taken. And I think we're all hoping that next season will be a lot more normal, that the season that starts in September 2021 will be a lot more normal.
Let's talk about Christine Ohlman and Rebel Montez. Where'd you get that name? Who and what is Rebel Montez?
It's nothing. We were thinking, I'm trying to think of a name that maybe could be an alter ego for me, and it never really caught on. We never really used it, but I came up with like, what is something like Cortez the Killer, that Neil Young song. And somehow that morphs into Rebel Montez. So it doesn't really mean anything. We hope it's catchy, but it doesn't have a big, hidden meaning or anything like that.
Well, you have a great band. I know Cliff Goodwin. He used to be in Joe Cocker's band. How'd you meet Cliff? What a great guitarist.
Well, Cliff and I were both are both in the Shaboo, or sometimes called the Mohegan Sun All-Stars. And that's where I met Cliff and asked him to join. He graciously accepted. He's an unbelievable guitar player, of course.
Absolutely.
An unbelievable presence on stage. So we're very lucky, and we've been playing together now for a number of years, and we continue to play together in the Shaboo All-Stars.
Well, I remember how I met both of you. It was at a holiday concert up in Boston, and you had what a kick-ass band, Rebel Montez, and you sang Chuck Berry's "Run, Run, Rudolph," and I was sold. And I went up to you on my knees afterwards, and I said, "Oh man, what?" And I introduced myself to you, and we've been friends ever since.
Yes, we have, and I so appreciate your support. And I know, by the way, just let me say, I know every musician that's on this podcast, you have supported steadfastly over the years, AJ, and we truly appreciate it.
And well, that's my life, so, I can play guitar too. And I used to have a lot of the famous Boston musicians back me up, but I learned very quickly. I'm a better writer than the guitarist, and I just can't sing,
Well, everybody has their great talent, so la différence, as they say.
I know all your albums. You have The Hard Way, Radio Queen, Wicked Times, Strip, Beehive, and The Deep End. Did I forget any albums?
We have a concert DVD called Live Hive.
Right, and you have a lot of music on tape too, right?
Mm-hmm.
In your archives that may see the light of day online at some point.
Oh yeah, we have a new record this year. It's going to be called The Grown Up Thing, and that's coming out this year. It was very hard to record during the pandemic, so
right.
We're just kind of coming out of that now, folks, as you all know.
Can you give me a website address that people can find out information about that album, when it's coming out, or about you and what you're doing, your current projects?
Yeah, well, it's easy because it's Christine Ohlman, OHLMAN.net or .com. They'll both take you to the same place. We have a very wide-ranging website that even includes free downloads, and our Reverb Nation is at Christine Ohlman. Our concert tour calendar is on that website, as well as on Facebook. I'm the Beehive Queen. That's my nickname. If you can't remember how to spell my name, just look at it. It's Beehive Queen. And Instagram, _Beehive_Queen. And it just kind of, we're all over the place. And Twitter, we're all over the place on social media.
Or you can contact me, folks, and I'll direct you to the right place.
And AJ will come to your house, and he'll tell you.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. In 2017, you were inducted into the National Blues Hall of Fame of American Heritage, and you were also named the top female American vocalist on the Alternate Roots International Readers Poll. Am I forgetting anything?
No, I don't think so. You've really done great research, and I appreciate your mentioning all that stuff.
Well, I want to talk. You have multiple appearances on the soundtracks of the HBO series Vinyl, including a duet with Elvis Costello. What's Elvis like?
Elvis is a great guy. We've done a lot of charity work in New York City on these all-star charity concerts we do. And he's also a musicologist, so we played some old school stuff, and the stuff we did on vinyl actually was all sort of Southern soul covers. Also, I want to mention that some work that I had done with Andrew Loog Oldham, who is the original producer of the Rolling Stones, is a great friend of mine, appeared in its entirety in the Quentin Tarantino movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, a version of a Rolling Stones song called Out of Time. As the plane was landing and Leonardo DiCaprio was coming into the airport, here comes that great version that Andrew and I had put together where I'm singing back up to the Rolling Stones. Pretty great, Have
you ever met Mick or Keith?
Well, Mick hosted SNL. And I didn't really have a chance to talk to him that day, but I have met Keith. You know, he lives in Connecticut, so he's around. He's around. He kind of hangs, you know.
Well, it's so cool for people that really don't know what Christina and me are talking about in referring to Andrew Loog Oldham. He was the first manager of the Rolling Stones, and you were on his album, the Andrew Loog Oldham Orchestra sings the Rolling Stones Songbook Volume 2, if I recall.
Yes.
Is he a cool cat, or is all of his years with the Rolling Stones taking their toll on him?
He kind of got out right before things got really weird. He produced all those early records, Satisfaction, you know, all of those, Ruby Tuesday. But then Jimmy Miller came in and started producing them. And that's when things got really, really bizarre with the enormous amounts of drugs and strangeness and Altamont and all that stuff. Andrew was gone, but he lives in Colombia now, South America. Has had a wonderful life in music, has continued to work. He had a wonderful label in England called Immediate Records, with the original label of the Small Faces and Steve Marriott. And he's had a wonderful life, and we're wonderful friends as well.
Well, that's very cool. I didn't ask you right before, but when you and Elvis, since you're both musicologists, when you have lunch together, what do you talk about?
Well, he loves a record by a group called the Exciters, which was a girl group called Run Mascara. He likes to sing that song. And we've just talked in general. The song we did on the vinyl was by this guy, Jim Ford. Jim Ford was a major influence on Nick Lowe and Elvis Costello.
Right.
He was a weird Southern songwriter who passed away young. And so Elvis kind of resurrected this Jim Ford song. And it was and of course I knew it, and it was wonderful, wonderful. I don't know how many more people he would have been able to find that knew it than me, but I knew it like the back of my head as soon as he suggested it. Sometimes things work out that way, AJ, where you just are in the right place at the right time.
Right.
The song comes up and you go, yeah, I know that,
Yeah.
So.
Speaking about songs, you have so many numerous studio and live collaborations on record and live duets with Dr. John. On record, you have Dr. John, Dion, Ian Hunter from Mott the Hoople, Marshall Crenshaw, Charlie Musselwhite, and live, you've sang duets with the Reverend Al Green, Steve Miller, Smokey Robinson, Bruce Springsteen, and George Harrison at Bob Dylan's 30th anniversary show at Madison Square Garden in New York City. Tell me about that.
So the best thing about that show was there were 4 or 5 days of rehearsal at SIR in New York, where everyone just kind of filed in and out, and most of them came in more than once.
Right.
Clapton, Neil Young, Tom Petty, they were all there. But one day they told us they were going to take us to Queens to a soundstage, and they put us all in a bunch of vans, the band and all of us, and took us out there to rehearse with George Harrison. They didn't want to bring him to SIR, and he so graciously went around the whole room and introduced himself to everybody. So it was Booker T and the MGs, was the band at Bob Dylan's request. And then there we all were. And he goes around to each person and says, "How do you do? I'm George Harrison." And it just diffused all the tension in the room that, oh my God, it's a Beatle, and he was just the most lovely. And also that day it showed up was Lou Reed. So we had a wonderful day somewhere out in Queens. I couldn't even tell you to this day where it was. And, with the two of them.
I saw a great photo of you from that concert. You are standing on a riser off stage, looking down at the stage. Yeah. You and 3 other people with your microphones. You had the best seat in the house.
We really did. We saw everything, and everything backstage as well. So it was, what a wonderful, historic night. I was just grateful.
Did you meet Bob?
Oh, yeah. And then 2 weeks later, this is, speaking about being in the right place at the right time, 2 weeks later, I had already been booked to open for him at the Centrum in Springfield or Worcester, I forget which, and he spotted me. And as we were all hanging out, he spotted me. He came over and he said, "You were in New York, weren't you?" And I said, "Yes." And then we started talking. He said, "Well, where's GE?" And I said, "Well, GE isn't here. This is my band. We're opening for you." And he said, "No kidding." And we stood there and we talked, and then afterwards his road manager found me and said, "I just want to say, first of all, he never talks to anybody. And secondly, let alone stand there the way he did and talk to you, for such a long time. And I said, well, we had a lot to talk about because we talked about the show at Madison Square Garden, so yeah.
So are there any songs? What's the most difficult Bob Dylan song to sing backing vocals on?
Oh, God. Well, the most fun was a song called Emotionally Yours, which had been on a not very well-known CD of his called Empire Burlesque. And the OJs, of all people, had covered it. So they came on to sing, and they added, to sing with me, they brought Cissy Houston, Whitney Houston's mother. She is like the diva,
Queen,
yes, of New York session singers. And so for me to sing with her was great. But the song itself, Eddie Levert just sang his ass off.
Yeah.
Everything, but I mean, everything that night. I sang with, I'm Johnny Cash. I mean, it was ridiculous, ridiculously great. I could go on and on just about that.
When you feel like swimming in a lake of fire and your heart's running over with your desire. You've been a little lonely, you've been a little sad. Your boss looks at you funny and you get real mad. Well, somebody's gotta do it tonight. Come on over, baby, let me love you right. Rolling and a tumbling, honey, all night long, trying to find a reason to keep her keeping on. There's 100 million girls walking around this world. Only one, baby, put your mind in a whirl. Well, somebody's gotta do it tonight. Come on over, baby, let me love you right. Love you right. Let me love you right. Love you right. Love you all night.
Well, another great thing that you're involved in today, and you've been involved with for a long time, is the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Benefits, and also the W.C. Handy Music Festivals each year in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. Can you tell us a little bit about that stuff, too? Because that's fascinating.
Yeah, I'm one of the national spokespeople for the New Orleans Musicians Clinic. It's
right.
One of my pet charities. So I have, with Mac Rebenak and others, the Radiators. In fact, my last post-pandemic road trip was to be on stage with the Radiators in 2020, January, at Tipitina's. So I'm very heavily embedded in the New Orleans scene and grateful to be. But in Muscle Shoals, I am deeply embedded. And this will be my 10th Handy Festival in late July. We didn't have it last year, of course. And I am, privileged to be in a band with David Hood, the great bassist David Hood, who played on from Tell Mama by Etta James right on down, every great soul record. Be in a band with David Hood called the Decoys. I also worked with Spooner Oldham. I also worked with the late Donnie Fritz, and so many times John Paul White from the Civil Wars. Everybody that lives down there. We're a very tight-knit community in Muscle Shoals, and it's one of the cradles of American popular music. And
absolutely. One
of the 2 or 3 cradles of American soul music. So can't wait to get back down there. I call myself an adopted daughter of the Shoals, and I just can't wait.
I can always envision you just being down in Muscle Shoals, because I've never been to Alabama. I could just imagine you and the band walking down a rural street and just walking and just starting to play on somebody's porch and just having a great time.
Yeah, there's so many small venues down there and a couple of big ones, and we just have, we have the time of our lives. The Decoys, I call them the house band of Muscle Shoals, and they are the top players in the scene are all in this band, the Decoys. It's like an all-star, Muscle
That's
Shoals.
So cool.
Yeah.
Well, you performed at the Obama presidential ball, both of them actually, right?
Yeah, both of them.
All right. And that, that's part of history, playing at the party for the first Black American president. How cool is that? What an honor that is. Were Michelle and President Obama dancers or clappers?
They were, well, they just passed through the ball, because they have them going to so many balls that night. They did dance a little bit, and they mostly just passed through because, those who's at those balls are all the big donators, the people that have donated, and government people. And so they really, everybody wants to meet them, and say that they were there. So actually they came through they came through and then they came through again while we were playing, so we didn't really have a chance to meet them. But it was like, wow, there they are, you know. And,
Yeah.
as they quickly were sort of good. I don't even know how many other places they had to go that night. I have no idea. It was very emotional for me. Very wonderful.
What I can imagine in both times you just lit the White House on fire. Is it fact or fiction that they renamed the place that you played the Beehive Hall?
I think that's fiction, AJ.
All right, I just wanted to get that out there. Hey, I really want to talk about you frequently collaborate with another Connecticut legend, NRBQ's Big Al Anderson. Can you please tell about Big Al?
Well, my brother and I had sort of the baby band when his band, the Wild Weeds. He's a number of years older than me, but we used to play with them at like teen clubs and things way back in the day. And then we stayed in touch. And then when he started coming up to Connecticut to do these shows, usually around the 4th of July and then again at Christmas. I don't know whether the July shows will happen this year, but the Christmas ones for sure will. And we began sort of collaborating. And then next thing you know, I was singing in the band. So, it's really been great to sort of come full circle that way in a musical way. He is, of course, the baddest ass of badass guitar players ever and blue-eyed soul singers, and really was my template when I was growing up. He taught me all about Ray Charles, and they set me on a path really to be looking at soul music in a different way, and R&B in a different way, because he did. So, I'm very grateful to him on so many counts. And I don't know, 7 or 8 years now I've been singing with him, and he performed on the Deep End CD, and he'll perform on the new one. And it's just an inspiration to be on stage with him.
Well, I have a great story. He's a really inspiring guy off stage as well. When I first met Big Al Anderson, he was friends with my mentor and business partner, Mickey O'Halloran. And Mickey O ran the Bun Ratties nightclub in Allston on Harvard Ave, and I, helped him run that. And Big Al and him were old friends, and Big Al played one day at Bun Ratties, played 2 sets, no opening band or anything. He just played the whole night, and he gets there for sound check, and Mickey O brings me upstairs and goes, AJ, I was a real young kid. And Mickey goes, AJ, this is my friend Big Al. Anything he wants, you make sure he gets, right? You just, make sure that he doesn't have to go looking for anything. And I thought he was talking about beer or a quick bite to eat or something like that. So after the first set, place is packed. I walk upstairs to the band room at Bun Ratties, and Al's there all alone, sweating, taking off his guitar and everything. And I go, Big Al, can I get you anything? And he goes, yeah, get me a gram. And I sat there and I said, and I'm thinking, I'm a young kid there, and this, I was a fan of his, and I didn't know what to do. So I went downstairs to Mickey O. Mickey O gives me $80. I went to the club Coke dealer downstairs, got a gram for $80. Went upstairs, gave it to Al. Al snorts it, and he went downstairs and played a killer set. But he overcame the demons. And he's playing on your album, and he's better. He's bigger than he ever was. You and I both know people like that, but it's a real treasure to hear stories that are right there in front of you.
Well, Al Anderson is 30 years sober this year. And famously sober for such a long time, and has written multitudinous #1 records in Nashville. He has, in fact, a cut on the new Chris Stapleton album, which shot right to #1. It's a song that he and Chris wrote about 15 or 16 years ago. So, his songwriting career continues at the top, and as I say, he picks up his 30-year chip this year.
How cool is that? That's great.
Very cool. Very cool.
Now I want to talk about you being a musicologist. You're a noted musicologist and record collector. What's a musicologist? And what's your specialty?
My specialty is something called Deep Southern Soul, which is soul music that was made in the 60s and 70s in places like Muscle Shoals and Memphis, largely with white musicians and African-American singers, people like Percy Sledge, who used nothing but white, a white backup band. All the guys that played in stacks, people like, Sam and Dave,
Right.
all that stuff. But I collect really deep stuff, sort of off the beaten path kind of stuff. And a musicologist is somebody that's just supposed to know enough about records that if someone has a question about history, you can answer that question. I was called to testify for John Mellencamp.
Right.
Yeah, when somebody actually somebody was suing him over usage of a song similar to George Harrison and the Chiffons with My Sweet Lord, and the Chiffons ended up winning. So you have to kind of know about bass lines and melody lines and whether something might have been used previous to the guy that was suing Mellencamp, and I actually found a reggae song that was, so that's kind of what you have to do, and really delve backwards.
Oh, that must be so cool. All of the fun must be in just doing the research.
Yeah, I go around the country and the world, actually. Oh, we've been to Europe a bunch of times with something called the Sessions Panel. And I do a presentation called The Roots and Branches for college students, talking about, and there's actually a big website, thesessions.org, that I created, all different genres of music, and the person that sort of was the big person in the genre, and then people underneath them. College kids, we quickly discovered, do not know a whole lot about music history. At one school we went to, nobody knew who Jimi Hendrix was.
Oh, man.
Nobody. And that's kind of where we discovered the fact that I needed to do a special presentation, and that's what I do.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, you've been quoted as saying, and I know this before the show, I come here to set your soul on fire. If I hadn't seen you live myself, Christine, I'd have thought you were a future arsonist or something saying that. But how do you personally set someone's soul on fire?
Well, AJ, one of the things is that I write most of the songs we do, and the songs that I didn't write are usually very obscure things out of my vinyl collection, So pretty much I'm presenting them with new stuff, or in the case of my fans, I'm presenting them with things that they have favorites. And I believe every song is a story. So I try to make the whole performance sort of an ongoing story. It's mostly a story about love and the highs, the lows, the good, the bad, the ugly, But I try to connect everything. And also, I have a saying is, go down to the deep end, the deeper level of deep, I call it. So I try to connect deeply with their emotions, with my own emotions. I don't really know how to go out on stage and just give kind of a glib performance. Everything has to be deep for me, or I'm not going to do it, or I'm going to go home.
I just want to tell you, that's a great message for today,
Yeah, I believe so. The deeper you can go, the more you connect. And those are the artists that I'm drawn to, if I'm going to listen to somebody, is somebody that themselves is going very, very, very deep.
Right.
So that's what I try to do. And thankfully, I have, Cliff Goodwin, Lauren Entress, and Michael Colbath, and Chris Bickley around me to present at a really, really high, musical level, as well as a really high emotional level.
You shake the roof. That band shakes the roof of any club I've seen yet.
That's what we try to do.
What should people expect at your show?
Well, they're just really going to expect a sort of honest presentation. Also, I love to make people dance. So whether we're going to be doing a drive-in shows this year with cars, we're going to be doing outdoor shows, I'll expect them to be getting up and dancing. When we go back to theater shows, they'll be dancing in the aisles, I can tell you. There are theaters I play in that said we've never seen anybody get up and dance until you came in here. So I just believe, I call it the hip shake, and I just believe that the hip shake should be on, at least by the middle of the set.
What are your current projects today? I saw on Facebook that on Sunday, December 12th, it's the Beehive Holiday Extravaganza, and that tickets are on sale May 15th. What else is happening currently in your life?
Well, because of the pandemic, we're now just starting to book, far ahead. December 12th is at Cafe 9, which is an amazing venue in New Haven that presents original music 7 nights a week. So we'll be back there. We're there every Christmas. There'll be a line around the block. It's a tiny little place. It's a jewel box.
Great place to see a show.
Yeah, in Connecticut. And of course,
and they're reopening, right?
They're reopening, there will be reopening soon. So Maybe by the time this is even on the air, AJ, they will have reopened. But we'll be doing things like we will have done, drive-in shows. In June, we'll be at a big, gigantic park in central Connecticut, outdoors, the Madison Beach Hotel, where they'll be hanging off the balconies. Probably will be back. At many of our places. I'll be in Muscle Shoals in late July for almost 2 weeks. We'll be in Nashville in September at the Americana Music Association Festival. I'll be appearing there with Bonnie Bramlett. I'm bringing her on the show with me. And we'll be all over New England. I'll also be appearing over the summer with our friend James Montgomery.
Absolutely.
I collaborate with James several times a summer, either on the Cape or somewhere in Massachusetts. We're already starting to plan our shows now. We were just on the phone the other day. But with Rebel Montez, I'll be appearing, and you can look at ChristineOhlman.net or ChristineOhlman.com for our Reverb Nation calendar. It's right there. When there's a ticket link, the ticket link will be up there, although a lot of the events are free. So check it out. We'll be, the pandemic is easing up. We hope it will continue to ease up, and we'll be able to not only appear outdoors, but in the fall at least, appear indoors to, we hope, full theaters.
That's going to happen. Everybody's getting their vaccinations right now.
Yeah. And we're looking forward.
My final question that I ask every guest that I have on Wachtelligence is, what was your first concert that you ever went to, Christine?
Wow. God, I went to so many of them, starting when I was really, really small. My father used to take me because I just wouldn't let up on him. My father used to buy me 45s and bring them home to me because I would just bother him until he does. I think it was the Stones, and my girlfriend Mary was older than me. I was always one of the youngest kids in my grade, but Mary had her license, and I think Mary drove me to see the Rolling Stones, I think. So great. So great.
Christine, thank you so much for being on Wachtelligence. It was great to speak to you again, and I just can't wait to see you live and on stage. And me, David, and Harrison, and hopefully everybody listening to this is going to track you down and catch you live in the next couple of months.
It's my pleasure. I'll see everybody in the Beehive. Let's rock on.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Wachtelligence. You can connect with me on Facebook at Wachtelligence. Thanks to my producers, my son Harrison and David Schwartz, and Harvey Brooks for my theme song. Don't forget to subscribe.
I don't care what you think of me. Don't need no jailer to set me free. Don't want strangers filling up my cup. Don't need no advisor to show me down from up.